Hey homeboys and homegirls, so today I'm gonna be doing a story time on when I went with my friend to meet a felon. I'm not gonna be saying, I'm gonna be like doing code names just so nobody can kind of like figure out who everybody is. So whatever names I say in the video, that's not their names. But yeah. Okay, so let's do a name for my friend and for the boy before I forget. Okay, we'll call my friend Ivy and we'll call the boy, I did a name, Lester. I don't know why. Okay, so my friend Ivy is like, I went to the store today and this dude came up to me and she was like, he's so fine, he's from around the way, and he asked for my number. And I'm like, okay, girl, like, that's so cool. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna try to link with him before he goes back to where he's from. I'm like, okay. So she's like, yeah, he's older than me, but I don't know how old he is. I'm like, oh, okay. Keep in mind, my friend's not like hella grown at all, okay? So later that night, she comes to my house. We're chilling for like probably like a few hours, and then she's texting the boy and he FaceTimes her and she answers it and he's like, hey, like, you want to link, like, what you want to do? And I'm like, what? He asked her, like, do you want to go out for some drinks? And she's like, okay, like, yeah, like, you can go out for some drinks, whatever. So they hang up the phone, whatever. So maybe probably like an hour later, he's like, I'm headed back to my crib right now. She's like, your crib? He's like, yeah. She's like, I thought you weren't from here. He's like, I'm not, but I have a house out here because I do business out here. So she's like, oh, okay, like, that's what's up. And he's like, yeah, like, you can come slide through. So she hangs up the phone. I'm like, what the fuck? Because, like, she doesn't know him. I'm like, you're going by yourself? She's like, I mean, like, I guess I will. And I was like, that's not safe, like, at all. Like, you don't even know this dude. I'm like, he could be like a sex trafficker. Like, you don't know him. So she's like, okay, well, like, you can come with me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll stay in the car. Like, I had pajamas on. I was like ready to go to sleep. I have pajamas on. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'll come with you because you don't know him. She's like, okay. So she starts getting dressed, whatever. And he's calling her. He's like, where are you at? Like, where are you at? She's like, oh, I haven't left my house yet. Like, I'm finna leave in like a few minutes. He's like, all right, bet. He sends her the address. We look up the address. 45 minutes away. I'm like, that's a little far, don't you think? That's a little far. She's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. So I'm like, okay, we need to bring like a weapon because we don't know this man. I'm like, we need to bring like a weapon. So we grabbed scissors. We grabbed pairs of scissors. I know what you're thinking. You two stupid ass girls. What is that gonna do? I wish I could tell you. So we grab scissors. We get in the car. We're driving. She's like, I'm so nervous. I'm like, yeah, bitch. I would be too. Like, we don't know him. So we get to his house. It wasn't even a house. It was apartments. We got to the apartment. And we had to get the gate code. So he gives her the code. We go in. And I'm like, first of all, I looked up the apartments. And I'm like, they do a lot of robbery over here. Yup. I look up the apartments and all you see in the reviews is robbery, robbery, robbery. They be robbing bitches over here. And look at us two dumbasses. We're over here. So whatever. All right, so we pull up next to his apartment and he comes outside and my homegirl's like, oh, like, hey, what's up, and she's like, I brought my homegirl. She's in the car, but she's just gonna stay in the car. And he's like, oh, actually, I wanted to go to the store. Like, do you want to come to the store with us? And so my homegirl's like, oh, come on, come to the store with us. So we get in his car. He had a nice ass car, very, very nice, but this motherfucker could not drive. He could not drive at all. When I tell you, I felt like my life was about to be over with. He was speeding, dude, like speeding down the street, swerving through the lanes, all on his phone. And by this time, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this man? Like, we don't do that. And he did not have his seatbelt on. So my homegirl's like, I mean, like, you're driving like that, you don't have no seatbelts on. He tells her, well, you have yours on. I'm like, oh my God. So he pulls up at a liquor store. And I'm like, how old is he? Because like I said, my homegirl's not hella grown, but she's like she's grown, but she's just not hella grown, like 25, 26 type stuff. I'm like, how old is he? So he goes in, she goes in with him. I'm like left in the car and I'm like, he left me in this nice ass vehicle. It was a Benz, like a 2021 Benz. I'm like, he left me in this nice ass vehicle. What if I was a fucking thief? What if he came out and he didn't have a car anymore? So they go in, and my homegirl texts me, and she's like, his card declined. I'm like, oh, well, are you gonna pay for it? And she's like, no. So his card declined when he was trying to buy Hennessy. Not even the big bottle, the little bottle. His card declined when he was trying to buy Hennessy. So she's like, what the fuck? So they get back in the car, and I'm like hella uncomfortable. He's driving crazy, dude, like speeding. So we go back to the apartment, and I'm like, you know, I'll sit in the car. And then she looked at me, and so I'm like, oh, well, can I come in with my friend? Because like she looked at me, and he's like, yeah, like that's cool. So we go in, walk in, there's no furniture. I swear to God on my life. No, nothing. Not even a dining room table. Nothing in the living room or the dining room. There's LED lights though. We're in a fucking dance studio, but there's no furniture. So I'm like, I thought he said he lived here. I thought he said he had a house here. Doesn't he come here to do business? So he takes us to the room, and there was a bed and a TV and a dresser in the room. But it was like a sequence comforter set. And if you guys would have just seen the guy, you would know, like, a sequence comforter set, I think the fuck not. So whatever, he sits on the dresser, homegirl lays like on the bed, like she sits on the bed, and I sit in a chair that's in the corner. So we're like all talking, I'm like, do you have any kids? And he's like, I have 5. I look at the homegirl like, he has 5 kids. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And we're like, oh, how old are they? And he could not name their, like, the ages. So my homegirl's like, damn, do you not know your kids? He's like, I'm just fucking with y'all. Like, I don't have any kids. And I'm like, how old are you? And I was like, let me guess, 30. He said, yes. This man was 30 years old. So again, like, at my homegirl, like, he's 30. This man is 30. This could be our father, girl. So I'm like, oh my God. So we're chatting, and I do know how the conversation got to this. Okay, so he had a black, and I'm like, yo, you smoke blacks? And he's like, yeah, because I'm on probation right now, or something like that. And we're like, oh, okay. And that's where the conversation ended. That's where that one ended. And we keep talking, and somehow we got onto the topic of him being a bank robber. He's like, yeah, I've robbed like a few banks before. He's like, but one time I got caught, and I went to prison. And I'm like, how long did you go to prison for? And he's like 3 years. And my homegirl's like, oh. And I wanted to be like, well, how did you do armed robbery for a bank and only get 3 years? Like, did you snitch? But I didn't, because it was very scary. So I was just like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah, the person with the gun got 11 years. And I'm like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah, I don't rob anymore. Now I'm just a trapper. What? So then then the conversation got onto that. Like, well, you trapped, da-da-da-da-da. He's like, yeah, like, I'm a trapper. He's like, that's why I'm out on probation right now. We're like, or not probation, on bail. He's out on bail. That's why I'm out on bail right now. And we're like, well, what did you do? He's like, oh, I was in Texas, and I got caught moving packs. And I said, you got caught moving packs in Texas? You're going to jail. It's Texas. You're going to jail. He was like, no, I'm not, because they didn't have a reason to search my car. Like, I'm going to get off. And I'm like, well, if that's what you think, but it's Texas. Come on now. Let's be a little more logical. This is Texas. Texas is not even like, como se llama? They don't play, you know? Like, whatever. I'm like, hey, Texas is hella racist. You're a black male. I just don't know how that's going to go in your favor. Like, being logical. He's like, no, I got it. We're like, okay. And then we just like keep talking. And he's like, yeah, I'm actually about to go out of town in a few days to blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I'm going to celebrate my homie's birthday. And my homie like passed away a few months ago. We're like, how? He's like, oh, he got murdered. What? He's like, yeah, he met some girl off Instagram, and the girl, it wasn't really a girl. Like, he was being set up, and he got killed in front of his apartments. And we're like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, like, where I'm from, like, shit like that happens every day. And I'm just like, and so my homegirl's like, well, you don't have nobody looking for you, right? Because we're in your home. He's like, man, nah, nobody's looking for me. Like, and even if they was, they're gonna get like hit with it in the face or something. And I'm like, and I was like, you have a gun? And he's like, yeah. And in my head, I'm just thinking, aren't you a felon? Can felons have guns? Like, genuinely. So I'm like, what the fuck? I am so unsafe. Like, I feel so unsafe. And his house was hella hot. It was so fucking hot in there. And I had on pajamas. I'm talking about, like, wool PJs and a fucking quarter zip. I'm hot. So my homegirl was like, oh, like, I brought scissors because, like, I didn't know if he was, like, a killer, like, laughing. She's like, yeah, me and my homegirl, like, we brought scissors. And he's like, oh, y'all brought scissors to a gunfight? What? I'm like, oh, you really have one? Like, you really have one? What the fuck? What the fuck? So we're just like talking and everything. He's like, oh yeah, like I know this person. Like talking about celebrities, like, oh, I know this person, I know this person, da 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 da. And he's like, you know, I got a homie for you. Talking about me. All his friends were fucking hideous, and I'm like, and they're all 30. Like I'm very much 18. Guys, it was the like craziest shit ever. Like some shit straight out of a fucking movie. I'm like, this is some nut job shit. Seriously. Like, genuinely, I don't understand. And then he just looked 30. Like, he was wearing what 30-year-olds would wear. Bucket hats. Gucci socks. Like, just looking a goddamn mess. So, then, finally, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I text the homegirl. I'm like, can we please leave? And she's like, yeah, like, I'm gonna tell him we're gonna leave right now. Because at this point, he's, like, laying on the bed. And and then, oh, we were, like, when he was trying to plug me with his, friend, I'm like, well, I don't really date dudes like that. Like, I date girls. He's like, and he starts trying to ask how lesbian sex works. No, I don't want to talk about that with you. I don't even know you. I don't want to talk about that with you. Because he's like, yeah, like, lesbians, they be on some player shit. Like, bisexual females are on player shit. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, what? What do you mean? So, like, I text the homegirl, I'm like, yeah, we need to leave. So she's, like, telling him, she's like, oh, yeah, like, we're about to head out, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh, okay, like, let me holler at you for a second. And my homegirl's like, who, me? God, bitch, he doesn't want to talk to me. So they talk about whatever they need to talk about. She gets in the car, and I'm like, he's dangerous. Like, and I was just telling her, like, he's nice, he's sweet, but I feel like he has two sides to him. So that's the last time I ever seen this dude. I don't even know what his fucking name was. He literally could have killed us because I would have had no idea how to identify him. But yeah, that was a story time when I went with my homegirl to meet a felon. 10 out of 10, don't recommend. Don't do that. Be safe. Don't go just meet random people that you guys do not know. But yeah, that is the story time, guys. Follow me on Instagram at Jordan Araya and TikTok and Twitter at Jordan from Vegas with a Z. Turn on the post notification bell so you guys never miss a post. And bye, guys.